Imagine for a moment the chaos of the battlefield before the 20th century. Cavalry charges clashing against lines of infantry, artillery thunder shaking the ground, and trenches filled with soldiers waiting for the inevitable clash. But then, suddenly, history unveiled a machine that would forever change the art of war, a monster made of steel, crawling forward like an unstoppable beast. This wasn't just another weapon. It was a revolution on tracks. In this documentary, we'll uncover the full history of the tank from its invention in the crucible of World War I to its engineering innovations and the pivotal battles where it roared across the fields of war, shaping the destinies of nations. Stay with me, because what you are about to discover is more than just military hardware. It's the story of how mankind reshaped the battlefield itself. The first sparks of the idea came in the dark, muddy trenches of the First World War. The Western Front was locked in stalemate. Machine guns mowed down any attempt at frontal assaults, barbed wire stretched endlessly, and the land became a graveyard for countless soldiers. Winston Churchill, then First Lord of the Admiralty, supported a bold concept, an armored vehicle that could cross trenches, smash through barbed wire, and shield men from gunfire as it advanced. As historian J.F.C. Fuller noted in Tanks in the Great War 1914 to 1918, the tank was born not from mere invention, but from desperation. It was an answer to the deadlock of industrial slaughter. The first prototypes, like the British Mark I, looked more like mechanical beasts than machines of war. Their diamond-shaped hulls and caterpillar tracks allowed them to crawl over terrain no wheeled vehicle could manage. Inside, however, conditions were hellish. The roar of engines, toxic fumes, searing heat, and constant mechanical breakdowns tested the crew's endurance as much as enemy fire. Yet, despite their flaws, tanks shattered the paradigm of trench warfare at the Battle of the Somme in 1916, and even more effectively at Cambrai in 1917, where massed armor coordinated with infantry and artillery demonstrated their devastating potential. The invention of the tank is inseparable from the horrors of the First World War. By 1915, the Western Front had frozen into an unbreakable stalemate, a scar of trenches stretching from the North Sea to Switzerland. Soldiers endured not only the relentless machine gun fire, but also artillery barrages that churned the earth into wastelands. Infantry assaults, no matter how heroic, were slaughtered in waves. Into this nightmare came the concept of an armored, tracked vehicle capable of crossing trenches and offering protection from small arms fire. Winston Churchill's Landships Committee pushed the idea forward, bringing engineers from agricultural tractor companies into secret projects. The result was the Mark I, the world's first operational tank. Historian John Terrain described its debut at the Somme in September 1916 as a mechanical miracle and a mechanical monstrosity in equal measure. Of the 49 tanks deployed, many broke down before reaching the front. But those that did made a lasting impression, crushing barbed wire and sowing terror among German defenders. A year later, at Cambrai in 1917, the tank's true potential was realized. Hundreds moved forward in unison, smashing through German defenses in a way artillery and infantry alone had failed to achieve. Though counterattacks clawed back much of the ground, Cambrai marked the dawn of mechanized warfare. Between the wars, military thinkers were divided. Some saw tanks merely as infantry support, while others envisioned them as independent striking arms. In Britain, J.F.C. Fuller and Basil Liddell Hart pushed the idea of armored warfare as the decisive future. In Germany, these ideas found fertile ground. Heinz Guderian studied their writings and crafted a doctrine where tanks became the spearhead of fast, coordinated offensives. Thus, when war erupted in 1939, tanks were no longer experimental. They were central to strategy. World War II transformed the tank from an oddity into the hammer of modern war. German panzers spearheaded invasions across Poland and France. their speed and coordination shattering old doctrines. French tanks like the Char B1 were heavily armored, but their scattered deployment allowed panzers working in massed formations with air support to bypass and destroy them. Historian Alistair Horn in To Lose a Battle noted that the French tanks were stronger individually, but the Germans wielded theirs as a sword, not as scattered shields. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union unleashed its own revolutionary design, the T-34. With slopped armor, wide tracks for snow and mud, and a gun powerful enough to knock out German tanks, it became the backbone of the Red Army. Marshal Zhukov later said, "It was the best tank of World War II. Against it, the Germans developed the Panther and the monstrous Tiger Eye, whose 88mm gun became legendary for its killing power." The Battle of Kursk in 1943 remains the largest tank clash in history. Over 6,000 tanks thundered across the steppe. German Tigers and Panthers collided with swarms of T-34s in fields that became burning graveyards of steel. Historian David Glantz called Kursk the decisive confrontation of armored warfare. The Germans hoped to regain the initiative after Stalingrad, but their failure at Kursk sealed their fate. The Red Army, with endless numbers of T-34s, rolled westward, crushing resistance under their tracks. In North Africa, tank warfare took on a different character. The desert provided vast maneuvering space where mobility was paramount. Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, wielded his Afrika Corps with brilliance, his Panzer III and IVs outmaneuvering British forces. At Gazala in 1942, sweeping armored flanking moves nearly destroyed the British Eighth Army. But at El Alamein, Montgomery's forces, reinforced with American Shermans, halted Rommel's advance. The Sherman, mass-produced by the thousands, was not the best tank one-on-one, but its reliability, ease of production, and the sheer numbers in which it arrived turned the tide. Historian Rick Atkinson in An Army at Dawn wrote, "The Sherman was the tank that made victory possible, not by brilliance, but by ubiquity." Meanwhile, in Western Europe, the Normandy campaign of 1944 highlighted both the strength and limitations of Allied armor. In the blockage, the hedgerows of Normandy German Panthers and Tigers ambushed Allied columns, inflicting heavy losses. Yet with time, overwhelming Allied numbers, combined with their superiority, wore the Germans down. Operation Cobra unleashed armored divisions that burst through German lines, beginning the rapid liberation of France. Patton's Third Army, with its armored divisions racing across open ground, demonstrated the devastating power of mobile warfare. When the guns fell silent in 1945, tanks had become the defining weapon of land war. But their story was not over. In the Cold War, they became symbols of superpower rivalry. The Soviet T-54 and later T-72 rolled off assembly lines in the tens of thousands, becoming the backbone of Warsaw Pact armies. The United States countered with the M60, and later the M1 Abrams, a machine that combined CHOPM composite armor, a gas turbine engine, and a devastating 120mm gun. Historian Richard Ogorkovich declared, "The Abrams represented the zenith of Western tank engineering." Europe became a chessboard where NATO and Warsaw Pact forces faced each other, tens of thousands of tanks poised to turn Germany into a battleground if the Cold War ever went hot. The Middle East became a proving ground. In the Six-Day War of 1967 and the Yom Kippur War of 1973, Israeli tank crews, outnumbered but fiercely skilled, proved the decisive value of armor. The Centurion and later the Merkava became legends. Historian Chaim Herzog recalled that Israel's survival in 1973 was written in the smoke and fire of its tank brigades, holding against overwhelming odds. But these wars also showed new threats. In 1973, Egyptian infantry wielding Soviet At-3 Sagar missiles destroyed Israeli tanks in large numbers, proving that tanks were no longer untouchable. The Gulf War of 1991 marked another turning point. American M101 Abrams tanks, supported by superior targeting systems, night vision, and air dominance, decimated Iraqi T-70s in battles like 73 Easting. Historian Stephen Bork in Jayhawk, the 7 corps in the Gulf War wrote, the engagement was not a contest of equals. It was a slaughter. The Abrams demonstrated that in modern combined arms warfare, tanks could still dominate when paired with technology and training. Before we continue deeper into the modern era of tanks, let me pause for a moment. If you're fascinated by how war machines shaped history and want to keep uncovering the hidden battles and forgotten truths that textbooks rarely show, make sure you subscribe to Vertex of Time. Join a community of history lovers where every week we journey through the turning points that forged civilizations. Hit the like button, subscribe, and let's keep this battlefield of ideas alive. In the 21st century, tanks remain symbols of power, though their role is debated. Conflicts in Iraq, Afghanistan, and more recently Ukraine have shown both their vulnerabilities and their enduring strength. Drones, precision-guided missiles, and portable anti-tank weapons like the Javelin have raised questions about whether tanks can survive in modern warfare. Yet time and again, they prove indispensable for holding ground, for breaking enemy lines, for projecting strength. Historian Steven Zaloga remarks, the tank has been declared obsolete more times than it has been destroyed, yet it continues to return, adapted and evolved. Modern tanks like the German Leopard 2A7, Britain's Challenger 2, Russia's T-90M, and America's upgraded Abrams integrate reactive armor, advanced optics, and even active defense systems capable of intercepting missiles mid-flight. The tank, after more than a century, still embodies the clash of modern war: protection, mobility, and firepower in a single package. It remains, as historian Matthew Hughes wrote, a monster born of necessity, perfected by ingenuity, and sustained by fear. Its roar echoes from the Somme to Kursk, from El Alamein to the deserts of Kuwait, from the fields of Ukraine to the future we cannot yet see. And so, the epic story of the tank continues. It began as a desperate gamble in the mud of 1916, became the thunderbolt of Blitzkrieg, the shield of Moscow, the hammer of El Alamein, the liberator of Normandy, the savior of Israel, and the steel fist of Desert Storm. It is not just a machine, but a symbol of how mankind fuses technology with willpower, fear, and ambition. And when the next war comes, whether fought in deserts, forests, or cities, the grinding tracks and thunderous guns of the tank will still be there, rewriting history in fire and steel. This is the saga of the tank. A machine. A weapon. An empire on tracks. Its story is far from over.